recap of our top story this morning. At least 73 people have been killed in a fuel truck explosion in Mozambique. A government statement said people had been trying to take petrol from the truck when it exploded in a province near the border with Malawi. According to the statement, more than 100 others were injured, some of them critically. One report said the truck had crashed and people had been trying to siphon off fuel. Government ministers are due to arrive in the area this morning to oversee the rescue work and the inquiry. The tanker had been carrying fuel to Malawi from the port city of Beira. Welcome back to KTN Worldview. Time now for our world press, and Trix Ingado now joins us for an in-depth review at major global headlines. Good morning, Trix. Good to see you. What's making headlines this morning?
Of course, the story about Mozambique is a huge deal, of course, in the African websites. But of course, we're going to start off with Al Jazeera. And Rodrigo Duterte is at it again. So the headline for this story is a Filipino dictator, his name was Fernando Marcos, has been buried among heroes. So a lot of people have taken to the street to protest this burial because, you know, this area of burial is meant for heroes, artists, people who have notable accomplishments during their lifetime. Right. And a lot of people think that this guy was a thief to the end. Right. This is actually a direct quote from one of the protesters. They're saying he actually lied his way into power and, you know, stole from the country and killed a lot of people. But Rodrigo Duterte feels that this is a hero, so naturally he's going to bury him among the heroes of the nation. Right. So a lot of people are not happy with that, and of course you can see the heavy police presence at that area from that picture. This is
interesting, you know, because when someone dies, normally in Africa we just don't say anything bad about
exactly,
them, no matter how bad we thought they were before.
But this guy, clearly he left a mark, and people are not happy with what he did back in history, and so they don't want him buried there. But of course he was buried there, which is making huge headlines. He was deposed in 1986 just owing to the kind of leadership he was for, and you know, people were not really happy about him. They revolted against him, and he has been, you know, it's a long time. So you can imagine why would he bring this up right now and disturb the, you know, the status quo. But you see, that's what's happening already. So that's the Al Jazeera website for you. Let's move down and see what more we have. We're having the fuel story from Mozambique. The fuel lorry exploded and killed scores of people. There are very horrible pictures, right? If you click on that story, you can see some of the injured, some are even children. And then according to reports, there were actually, the lorry had an accident, and then a day later it's exploded. So there is a huge likelihood that these people actually were siphoning the fuel or actually selling it from that area when it exploded, because there's a large period of time between the time it actually had the accident and the time that it actually exploded.
The fact that people are just let to siphon off the fuel without any security.
But we know this narrative, you know, it has happened in Kenya before, and then we're having more stories on Baghdad. Kurds at odds over control of post-ISIL Mosul. The battle for Mosul still rages on, and you know they're trying to take it away from IS, but it's not really as easy as, and they say this is going to be a difficult fight. So it's still ongoing. It's going into its second month right now, and you can just see that it's still a huge story on this big headline, these big news agencies. Now let's take a look at the next paper, which is the BBC, and it's focusing on Trump's trip to Japan. So Japan's Prime Minister Shinzo Abe has said he has great confidence in Trump, and you know, a lot of countries were really against Trump presidency, but now he's now trying to, you know, forge an interesting you know, interesting alliances with countries outside. Right. What's making me laugh is the picture down there where it seems like Donald Trump is kissing.
I don't know if people can see this.
At the corner, just pointing to the bromance between the two guys, Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump, while there have been warnings that Putin is not the person that the U.S. is supposed to be cozying up to, but you know, this is just mocking the relation between those two countries. Right. And he was one of the first presidents to congratulate Donald Trump in that after he won the election. So this is Trump election is the headline, and there are more warnings on the relations on the dangers of a relationship between the U.S. and Russia, but that just remains to be seen. Only time could tell if this bring forth good fruits or bad for the U.S. Then there's an interesting story right here about a dying teenager who won a case to be frozen, and it's the process is called cryogenics, whereby you're frozen, and in case there are solutions to your health problems, whatever you had before you died, or there's the scientists actually develop an ability to bring people back to life, you might be brought to life.
Wow.
So this teenager won the case, so that allowed her mother the rights to actually have her body frozen. So she died of a rare cancer, and now her body is going to be preserved, and maybe, who knows, maybe she's the wise person who will be brought back to life in 100 years.
I mean, let's wait and see.
Yeah, time can tell. Yeah, then there's the same story on Philippines, Marcos being given, Fernando Marcos being given a hero's burial. A lot of people are against it. And then the schools killed. The Mozambique story is still a huge story across the headline, the agencies. And then there's a call to unite over Trump's climate threat. So Donald Trump has repeatedly said that the climate change is a hoax. It's nothing real. So he feels like he's not going to be supporting any efforts to fight climate change. So, of course, a lot of countries are not for that.
I mean, 190 countries have signed up to the Paris Climate Deal, and so it's a big deal.
Yeah, so I think a lot of these things that Trump says are not things that he actually looked into and see how deep they are and how realistic they are. So some of the promises are rather odd, but, it will be hard for him to go against all those countries in their efforts to battle or combat climate change. So the next paper right there is African News. Let's take a look at that. African News is an African website, and the WHO is promising to have a malaria vaccine in the next by 2018. So the headline for that is world's first malaria vaccine to be tested in sub-Saharan Africa in 2018. And of course, there's a lot of hope that this is going to work and put an end once and for all to diseases like malaria and focus on other bigger diseases like cancer and AIDS and things like that. There's a lot of money that's being pumped into this research. So that's, I think, a good thing in terms of health and the development on that front.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So let's take a look at the next paper. We also have the same story about the Mozambique. We have better pictures actually from the African.
I mean, this looks really, really tragic.
Yeah, exactly. So we have better pictures from the African websites rather that just give us a depiction of what happened. I think, given that they were closer and on the ground, but it's the same sad story of the 73 people who lost their lives. And then electoral violence is like a raging bushfire. Jammeh urges peaceful campaign. So Yahya Jammeh is very controversial. He's trying to get Gambia out of the ICC. He has been accused of some human rights violations, but now it's an interesting message coming to him. He has defied all odds and all criticism and is running for another another term in office. And of course, he's asking people to stay calm because, of course, a lot of people are not for him.
Angry about it, absolutely.
Exactly. So then we're having another paper here. It's the African Business paper, focusing on digital financial services, trying to look at the pros and cons of this and how hard it is for actually sub-Saharan Africans to embrace digital finance. We're having countries that have done away with paper money and are all digital, but with Africa, we're still having a long way to go. Kenya has actually made a lot of strides in that front. We have our M-Pesas, M-Kopa, and all those services, but Africa as a whole has not completely embraced it, and they are still trying to look at how far we need to go on that.
Right.
Then let's take a look at The Guardian, our next paper. Right there, it's the same the same story on Trump's diplomatic efforts. Shinzo Abe said that this is Trump is going to be what can I say? He's confident in Trump's abilities as president. The interesting thing is that he takes his family everywhere. We can see that's Melania Trump, and I think his other son right there, not really Melania, but Ivanka Trump, the daughter.
And I mean, the family even took the front line in helping choose the cabinet and whatnot, and it's been very controversial.
Yeah, it's controversial because, even the First Lady is never really in a position to influence policy and make such decisions. So for the fact that his daughters and sons are actually having this kind of access, a lot of people are not happy with it. But, well, we saw how they were working during the campaigns period, so you would expect them to continue that way. So it's basically a family affair at this point. Yeah.
Okay.
That's The Guardian for you.
All right. Thank you so much, Trix Ingado, there with the latest news making headlines in the global newspapers. You're watching Worldview here on KTN News. Take another short break. We'll be back shortly.